Order. Peggy, will you take the roll, please?
Dornick?
Here.
Steiner? Here. Grant?
Here.
Wilson?
All right. And pretty easy agenda. Any additions or corrections?
No, I make a motion to approve the agenda.
All right. A second. All in favor, aye? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Citizens Forum. Any citizens caring to make comment? More than welcome. There'll be a few more committee meetings, so. All right. We'll move right on to 2015 budget discussions. And a little bit of a time crunch, but go ahead, Justin.
Okay, I think our first page here, we have Parks and Recreation revenue. I don't think there's really any big changes here.
The question I had was a drop in pool fees. Is that just from being open less?
Yes. Yeah, we opened 2 weeks late. So that was right during the end of June, was kind of our warm time.
Yeah.
2 less weeks. So
Yeah.
that's huge.
And then
There wasn't a lot of warm time.
Then you just made next year's revenue estimate a little more conservative, basically. Okay. Other than that, that's the only question I had.
And other thing that we can change things would be donations. We have the skate park donations that kind of alters the estimate for 14.
Yeah.
Any questions on revenue or? We haven't opened open recreation yet for this year, so it's kind of up in the air. As soon as that opens, that could open the 2014 estimate. If you want any questions, we'll go to City Hall meetings, I think it's page, next page. Any questions on that one?
Just notice a pattern of gas, which I assume is a natural gas.
Yep, cold winter. We're gonna be over this year. I just added, I tacked on 10% on that for this year. Veterans gonna be another cold year, so.
Yeah.
We're sitting, we did have some maintenance issues with our boilers. That's not that we're addressing that to the 5-year capital plan to those boilers that have been here since the 70s. So I think it's time to start looking at a more efficient system. Our emergency generator, also our ECU. One thing on there, if you look at supplies, there's an increase in that. A lot of the departments have been using our supplies more frequently now. So I kind of took an average the 2 years and put that in there. So we have like an increase in like the use of paper products, cleaning chemicals, and bag liners, and cancels, that kind of stuff. So it's a good thing that the other departments are using it more. So.
Right. Just for everybody's knowledge, Park and Rec buys on volume when they can, and then will sell. I'll use that not correctly, but shift the cost then out to the other departments that need those supplies rather than buying them at lower volume. Okay, good.
Any questions on City Hall maintenance? Go to police station maintenance. Any questions there?
About the same gas increase.
Gas increase, yep. Water, electric a little bit. We did this year, we did change around the percentages for the employees. We're looking at giving more hours to other people and dropping hours, and we're going to be shifting that around.
Okay.
So you will see a decrease and you will see an increase in the salaries and benefits in certain facilities. Okay. So, other than that, there's not a big change there. Go right to next page, we're looking at parks. You can see a shift there in salary. We did figure an increase, so. Other than that, any questions?
What's picnic equipment?
Picnic equipment that
Picnic
we-
tables?
We replace our dome covers. A lot of our garbage cans do not have covers on them. So every day you're pulling the bottom and draining the bottom of the cans, the liners. So our goal is to eventually get all of our garbage cans covered. So that's one cost on there. And another thing would be replacing like our wood tables, planks. They're gonna be lighter. They're gonna be easier to clean. You spray all of ours with a disinfectant spray. So that's basically that would be the picnic stuff. It would be also our grills. We've had, I think, 2 of them damaged this year. They were rusted out. So that's basically that.
Playground equipment?
Playground equipment, we have quite a few of them that need to be restored. A lot of them are rusted. We need to sand them down, repaint them, replace the swings. We have a project going up here that I can't really talk about until it comes up. We're moving some playground equipment to other parks and upgrading one of our other ones. So the goal is to restore some of them and help some of the other smaller parks out with that.
Okay.
Any other questions on parks?
Keep going.
I was on something else, I'll wait till you're done.
Okay, director. We have, possibly, I might be looking at health insurance here. That wasn't on there the last 2 years. It's a question mark. So we just figured it in to be safe. We don't know yet.
That's the change.
That's the change of benefits. Other than that, I think everything else is just a slight increase or decrease here and there. Rec center, I think overall we have a decrease in that area. Gas is up a little bit. That's the same with all of our facilities. Water, electric is a freeze. You see
Salaries
a
are-
decrease in there because of our shift percentages. So other than that, you have roughly almost a 19% decrease, I think, in that area of the shift. Recreation, had a slight increase. The biggest reason for that is I haven't proposed it yet, but we're gonna look at our wages, our hourly wages for our pool employees, our summer laborers, and also some of our recreation users. Not saying it's gonna happen, it may shift either way, but I'm gonna propose that before the end of the year for next year. So that'd be the salary part for recreation, plus I added a couple programs that I'd like to start. Hoping to start with youth basketball. I'm hoping to utilize the disc golf course. So we have a league, and abandoned. So you need people to be there to supervise those programs. So that's where the increase is in that. If they don't happen, of course, you're going to see that in the end of the year. Other than that, soccer program, our board kind of dissolved over the last year. I should say over the last probably 10 years. Every year it has less and less volunteer board members. So I'm thinking eventually, I think the city is going to be taking that whole program over. The only difference is we relied on fundraisers before. We did them like every 3 years. So that might be something we might have to absorb. Whether we continue the fundraisers, that's something we talked about. So that's why that increased a little bit. Swimming pool. One thing that wasn't really accurate was my employees, my 3 full-timers and my summer employee spent a lot of time at the pool prepping it for the opening, and then we're there throughout the year maintaining the facility. But those wages never really reflected in the total wages and benefits for the pool. It was just always absorbed by just the parks. So that's part of the shifting part. It's going to look higher because of that. Before, it was never included.
not a salary increase, it's just a shift of the labor to where it actually is being spent.
So that's one of the areas that went up. System maintenance, it's an older system. We're looking at replacing the sand and gravel and all the filters. It's between $200 and $2,500 to replace that. There's some other parts in there that need to be replaced. It hasn't been done in a long time, and that's definitely not. Now, what the future pool is going to be is something that needs to be done for the operators. So the system maintenance went up.
Phil? Yeah, go ahead, Phil.
Justin, I just saw the telephone expense, and I'm just curious, are there other options besides having I understand the need for the phone, but
That's one thing I was going to look into. I had a question mark here. Right now, we have an on-call cell phone for our department, and whoever's on call takes it home. But there's barely any signal with that little flip phone out there where my guys live. They all live in the country. You try to get a hold of them, you can't get a hold of them. You try their landline or their personal cell, and that's normally what I call them on. So I'm thinking about dropping that and possibly just having a cell phone with that same pool number at the pool, and then drop this. So you're looking at $800 is kind of where we're leaning right now for our landline for about 3 months, because we got to pay year round.
I've brought this up before.
Yeah. So you're looking at $800 there, or you're looking at roughly $40 for our cell phone. Yeah, for that. I don't know if it's going to change at all if we change numbers, but it's going to definitely be cheaper than a landline. So that's one thing I have a question mark on here before we open next year, if we open to look into the home. So that could adjust there a little bit.
Yeah, to keep that 823 number, there's like a 2-month layover in there to get it, because it takes a while to get it.
So we'll start right away.
Yeah, if you plan on it. That's the way I've said to go for a few years.
Okay. So that's one of them on there. I think that includes all the park. Go to capital. One thing I'm gonna drop on here because of our new development with playground equipment. The first round playground equipment, I'm gonna be dropping that. I think that's the 32.7. That's gonna be dropped with our new thing that's going on right now. So that won't be off of there. That'll put us down around 20,441 for capital. We have playground servicing. We do that every year. The office one is a new computer. This thing right here is, I don't know if you can, I barely bring it anywhere, and it's very difficult to use this tiny little screen every time for doing work. And I deal with a lot of spreadsheets, and that's what I do in my office, on the spreadsheets. This thing is just really getting slow. It's 3+ years old now, and you don't need more technology. It's starting to get older. This thing right here would probably be recycled and used in a different area, maybe the pool, somewhere. But I just put that on there. It doesn't have to be there, but that's what the office improvement is. And it probably will be less than that. Just kind of threw a number out there and waiting for Ralph to play it back.
Playground surfacing is wood chips.
Yes, and this year all of our surfacing is going to one park, and we'll put it in all parks. Other than that, the park improvement is the third payment of the lawnmower that purchased 2 years ago.
Okay.
Community center.
Real briefly on the lawnmower, is that, and we've kind of talked about this, how much that it has been a good investment for the city.
Yeah, you can, before I think it took 4 days to mow all of our parks, and now we get it done in half the time. So it's allowing us to get out there and spend more time on sport fields, allow us more time to do more maintenance projects. So it also helped with eliminating, up to now, I'm hoping to go down to 1 summer help next year, and just because we had times where we didn't need them. So it was definitely, I think, a good investment. Plus, it's more efficient on fuel. Community center, we're looking at, I think overall there's a decrease overall in that just because of the shifting. Capital project, I think, is probably the main thing on there. And we got about half, pretty close to half that facility in LED lights right now, LED tubes. And we have noticed a difference in our electrical bill. And the remaining part right there would be to cover the rest of the facility. And before I covered it under our, just a little bit here and there with our maintenance, because I did have a light bulb account there within maintenance, building repair and maintenance. And now I'd rather just do the whole thing in one lump, get it done, and help us save on our electric bill. Other than that, gas a little bit higher, of course. You'll notice the expense counts, they're fluctuating a little bit between the different facilities because of the percentage difference in employees shifting from facilities. Any questions there? Okay, Veterans Memorial. I should, I'm going to be changing this, but for the revenue, I like to balance the two. At least that's what they've been telling me the last couple of years. Set a goal for donations, set a goal for sidewalk bricks. So I'm gonna, the donation part, I gotta bring this yet to my committee. But this is what I have so far, and then when they okay it and talk about it, I might have some new numbers. For the donations, I like to put that at 744, and then 2,000 for sidewalk bricks, and that'll balance it out. Water and electric, I'm keeping that the same. It might decrease with our new LED lighting. Other than that, it's very, very close to last year. Do we even want to talk about sanitary? Your time? I'll make it quick. The wage, the salary, benefit part is still being kind of ironed out a little bit. I don't have that on there, but we're looking at just a little over 40,000 for 2 employees, 1 full-time and 1 part-time. It's 40,039. That's probably going to fluctuate a little bit depending on what we pay. And all that stuff has to be ironed out, depending on when we take it over, if we do. The telephone, they've always had a little over 500. I have it at 562 because the last ones, the numbers are off of 13, so I don't really have 14s yet. Gas, 461. Water and electric, we're looking at 418. Small equipment, we're looking at 250. Expense allowance, we're looking at 1823. Fuel expenses, we'll be looking at, they have like propane and then their unleaded and diesel for their equipment, 2963. Machine equipment parts, 1134. Repair and maintenance, 443. And then I don't have the numbers on insurance yet. That put it right around 4993 without insurance and without employee benefits. My guess is going to be somewhere around 60,000. Might be a little less depending on what we pay for wages. So it's going to be a little bit more than what we're spending.
Do they have any income?
I don't have the revenue right now because it's not consistent. It all depends on how we vary.
Did they tell you how many there were last year?
Do you remember this at all?
It was very low. I know we had it at
Was it 29 in 2013?
We might have to be creative on maybe the pricing. Lower donation tone. There's some tweaks we can do, but I don't know if we want to jump into that right away. Ride it out a year and see where we're going, see where we're at, and see what's going on.
Well, the council hasn't acted on yet anyway, so.
So that's just my early numbers, just to be prepared.
I have another question about the Winter Whirl.
Yep.
First, I wanted to comment, I went to the recital of the gymnastics group that was held at the old Armory, and it was fabulous. I got there and the whole parking lot was full in all the streets, and I couldn't get a chair, and so it was just, I thought it was just wonderful to see. That was just one of the 2 nights, and the place was jumping at the old Armory, so it was a wonderful use of it, and that was a wonderful program. I participated in the Winter Whirl, and I didn't win, but I tried. But I noted that that the, we have a budget for the Winter World, but that all the signs in the Armory said that the money went to the wrestling program, all the funds raised? Okay,
Mayor McGee,
yes,
Mary Beth Keister is not listed as a member here. How can she speak if us citizens can't speak? Thank you.
because she's a council member.
I did yield the floor.
No, that's not 100% true. Every organization has softball, and soccer, and they pay their fees to the students.
Oh, I see.
And I don't even think they go to, I think they're selling coffee and some beverages. I run all of the sporting events up in the high school. I contact everybody, all the schools. Whoever's interested comes there. They pay their, I think it's $12 for one table, 18 for two tables, and we get that revenue in there. But everything in there you'll see as a revenue account for parks.
They were just the most visible of it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a wonderful event. I had a great time, so thank you.
I think we'll have more on cemetery coming up. I've already aware of, as I've been talking. Yeah. Ready for kickoff? And street.
Oh, it's gonna be. Okay. I'm curious.
So the question by Jeannie was, it falls into park and rec. It's not much of a park or recreation.
It's peaceful.
But it would be somehow split, I think, between there and street, because there's mowing and it's got to go somewhere.
I know they're getting a tree down out there today, so.
All right, we'll move on to fire. A little bit easier to hear me if I come up. That's all right? Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. That rat as well.
That's gonna be on here, but I don't care.
I'm sorry. Skipped you. All right, do you want to lead us through or?
Yeah, absolutely.
A little bit of reading on the first page.
Yep, I guess, first and foremost, as I was sitting here, I realized that the summary of the salary sheet that I put together is not here, so I owe you that, but I can talk through what's on that sheet, because the numbers are there in the budget purposes. So, I guess to start out, I just summarized 2014, and it's kind of there for your reading. Some of the things that, in a quick summary of what it says, we had some salary format changes that were put into place in 2013. Also, we had a goal in 2014 to increase our membership upwards of 34 to 37 members. So we had an opportunity in 2014 to do some new hiring and making some strides in that direction. Also, 2014, we're expecting a new engine to arrive later in this year. That'll create an apparatus replacement schedule, or the apparatus replacement schedule will show that. And also, we were afforded the opportunity with a grant to also purchase a brush truck here in 2014 for next year. So all that's reflected in the schedule that's in front of you. And then there were some funds that were appropriated with that. So in addition to those changes, then there were some funds that were put towards the new hires for equipment, as well as our portion of what has to be paid for that brush truck. So that's been approved, and that'll be reflected in there as well. Looking at some other station improvements besides the turnout gear, also the lockers that actually hold the turnout gear so that we can try to get the best life out of the gear from the current condition it's in. And also some of the items that needed to be changed in our operational maintenance, which would include how we handled our testing with the ladders, pumps, even the city sirens had not had a maintenance program. So all that's kind of in this budget and expressed. As well as, I guess, kind of coming to the end, you guys have maybe heard the whole MABUS organization, MABUS Division 142, which is essentially Wapaka County. It's an arm of organizing resources from other departments. So we looked at that, perhaps adding to the amount of calls we respond to as a department. However, should there be an event that is in our community, it allows us to bring resources to our community without adding and taxing with cost from those other departments that respond to us. So we're starting to see that implemented. I think this weekend we had 2 calls in which MABUS was implemented. Not our fire department calls, but within the county or within the division. So it's starting to take hold and starting to impact the amount of responses. So that kind of just summarizes the year and what's going into next year. So then on the first page after the summary, I was asked to provide the estimated budget. So I'm going to state that the 2015 budget, if you guys could look past that portion of it, because I summarized that later, and this is really about the 2014 estimate sheet, the first 2 pages. So I went through and put in what I estimate for the 2014, and also you'll see I had actually put in that additional funding that was allowed for the turnout gear, the pagers, the lockers. That's actually inserted in these columns where the expenditures would occur, rather than dumping it into a capital at the bottom. So you'll see I'll make reference that the capital was added, the dollars were added, but I have that in the estimate right where the expenses would be. So the one that stands out should be clothing and uniforms, where the budget was originally at 6, now it's at 25 for an estimate because of that dollars that were allotted for that. Overall with the year, I think my largest concerns kind of taking over the budget has been apparatus maintenance, repair costs, and adequately having a budget to allow for those repair costs to be a little more realistic. Fuel costs, you can see the fuel costs, it's already looking to exceed, so I'm looking at what it's really costing us for fuel and making sure the budget going into 15 reflects, provided we have a stable fuel cost and there isn't some great inflations that we can't control. And then as well as that large amount of money that was put towards the gear, the pagers, those are things that we need to have in our budget and start properly buying and purchasing in small doses rather than expecting to go out and try to purchase $100,000 worth of turnout gear all in one lump. If we can put that in the budget and plan accordingly, we can get into a replacement schedule. 30 members, and the gear is good for 10 years. Let's be buying 3 sets of gear and just each year and keep the rotation going, so the budget actually allows us. Because a lot of these items we've been afforded through grants. So getting grants for all the turnout gear, getting grants for SCBAs, things of that nature, was great. Helped our community, helped us get this equipment into the fire department. But grants won't replace stuff you've already gotten on grants. That's kind of a big no-no. So we're not going to get a grant to replace the turnout gear they already gave us once. So we need to be responsible financially for that replacement schedule. So that kind of goes over the 2014 estimate, those 2 pages, and then you get into the account summaries. And again, I owe you the page 1, which is my breakdown of the salaries. But essentially the salaries are equal to previous years. No change in when I'm proposing for salaries for the members. And also I broke it down into a basis of 80 calls at 2 hours and 10 calls at 6 hours. So essentially most of our calls can be maintained within the first 2 hours. So that's where my numbers come to. And you'll actually see that my summary sheet is going to show about a $5,000 reduction in salaries overall. Part of that is also we're putting into place a reserve personnel. We can have members that we're not paying the same amount. They're not responsible to be on call, but they are members that are trained, active, and able to come to calls. But in exchange for not having that call time, they take a reduction in salary. So that'll afford us to have more people available with a lesser dollar amount. And kind of going through, I guess, that page 2 summary, contracted services, those are all pretty normal contracted services you see. However, I do have some additional items such as aerial and ground ladder testing. We implemented that this year. That had not been done historically and something that's required by NFPA to get done, so we were able to get that done. The siren maintenance of $1,500 was in previous years within the same capital expenditure, but through police and fire requested a separate place or an account number be added and put that dollar amount there because that's not shared with the townships. So that's a city expense only because the sirens are essentially meant for the city. So the townships are not paying for that maintenance. So that was kind of getting buried within, and in conversation, I'm recommending a new account number so we can be more specific to what we're spending on that siren. And that also, again, goes into the maintenance plan. I think most of us probably are aware, if you drive through Hortonville, what had happened there the previous year in 2013. And you also probably heard on the news all of the concerns with the sirens not working, because they hadn't been maintained, or the not having the investment put into those sirens maintained. By the time there was an emergency, they weren't working. We were actually having problems with our sirens in the spring as well. So I would like to get, and I'm proposing in this budget, is that dollar amount to get that services here before the tornado season hits. Make sure everybody's checking those sirens over and not reacting to just faults that we're finding during the monthly test. Continuing through the page, I guess various equipment for small equipment. No major changes there. We do have our physicals and additional hires that spiked up this year with additional proposal. Will show pretty standard year, slight inflation because we do expect to have a few more hires. The clothing uniform, you'll see it has the annual support of 3 sets of turnout gear, so you're going to see a bump in that request in order to get into that maintenance schedule with the clothing uniforms. Radio repair and maintenance, you're also going to see a bump up in that, and that's also based on annual support of pager replacement. Essentially, our pagers have been multiple times have been had to send in. There's a lot of aged pagers, a lot of aged equipment, so we need to start looking at rotating that equipment as well. If we can look at the same philosophy as clothing and uniforms, start replacing those pagers. Carrying through, I do have a special section just for apparatus on the next page. Also, fire inspection, slight change in the fire inspection. As of January 1, the current fire inspector is retiring. He's a member of our department just as simply for, I believe, for insurance purposes. He's essentially not an active member of the fire department. He's a citizen that comes in and does that, obviously with experience. And overall, we're looking at, there's 740 inspections that need to be done in a year's time with the fire department. And I looked at our hourly wage that we're paying our personnel now for calls. I looked at an average with a couple other communities that's about an hour and a half average out. Certainly there's going to be a factory that takes 8 hours. There are facilities that might only take 15 minutes or half an hour. Overall, the amount of volume of inspections that need to be done average out to approximately an hour and a half per inspection. And that's actually 740 is because you're doing it twice in a year. So I looked at that and increased the budget to $12,500 to allow us to look at actually doing that in-house at the $11 an hour rate, which is the same as what the firefighters are paid currently. I've made some contacts with services, and their inspection services would be triple this if we would choose to hire it out with an outside firm. So I believe we have 5 members of the department that are actually enrolled for the fire inspector course for 2014, and we have 3 members currently that hold certification. So putting 8 to 9 people on the department that have that training currently. And then the capital outlay, I have listed here $7,500 is what we're actually contributing. So I do have an amendment here because I did not show the granted amount for going out. So it's actually $155,000, but well, $7,500 is the part that we have to pay towards that. You skip going into page 3, it just lays out all the apparatus maintenance costs. You're going to see some increases in this maintenance cost and also some decreases. With some of the replacement apparatus coming in, we're able to reduce the amount budgeted for those particular pieces of apparatus under warranty in new vehicles, so that's more or less your normal maintenance cost. But we're going to see some increases in some of the areas like the aerial, as well as the older engines rescues, essentially trying to be a little more realistic at what it costs than the typical repairs in a year. I found and kind of looked at the schedule over the previous year. Unfortunately, the previous years didn't break down each and every apparatus, so I had to take some guesses and kind of looked at the age of the vehicle, allotted more for the age of the vehicle or the complexity of the truck, where there's more opportunities to repair more items. And then the Clintonville's replacement schedule, kind of trying to get our apparatus into a regular schedule looking out. I mean, we're actually looking at the next time you've replaced a truck that hasn't even been delivered yet. So getting that into a 24, 25-year cycle, which is the recommendations by NFPA as to the life expectancy of fire apparatus. And you can see, you know, each year through the process over the next several years, all the way out to 2038, giving you an opportunity to kind of see the expectation of cost as well as when those apparatus would be needed to be replaced. If you don't have any other questions, we'll skip to the last one. It's just the outlines the actual 2015 budget numbers compared to previous years. You can see the totals there. Talked about the fire inspections and the capital. That's where I need to make that adjustment in that line item to reflect the outlay, including the grant monies. I do have the grant money in the budget under the revenue section, so I show it there, but I don't show it going out, so I just need to make that adjustment. That'd be great if we could get 150 and only have to spend 75, but not going to happen. And then the last page was just kind of looking at overall capital improvement plans. I did insert, you know, going out to 2020, I inserted some apparatus needs that, you know, we have in that apparatus replacement schedule. Also have the outlay of money for the brush truck. And then you'll see in the last year where the next vehicle comes into place, those being the largest components. Some of the other things that looked at, again, would be an enhancement or something to consider is there is a state matching length of service award program in which the state will match what the city puts into that program for the firefighters as a token or a payment after they serve. So we could look at some restructuring of the salaries and actually put some funds to that, pull in some of the state funds, and that could potentially have a large factor in our retention concerns. If you look at the overall retention on the fire department and how many years we have, that's a large concern because we're investing a lot into the schooling. As you can see with the cost of gear and equipment, you know, are there programs, and here's a state program that's available. The only thing I put some dollar amounts in there in the future to maybe consider if we would look to actually try to bring up some of the senior members into that program. That's not available for state aid, but once you have a program going, then they'll match funds for each year that you contribute. So that's something I need to do a little more detail on in the future, but just looking out at some overall costs in the next 5 years and opportunities we might have. You guys have any questions for me?
No, I don't. Yeah, I just had a question. How has the proposed change that Larrabee is making in their fire district, has that impacted your budget, Shane?
What I was given by the city, I believe, keeps it at the same percentage. I know that the proposed changes, I don't know if they've been officially approved, so I don't know of any exact numbers, but essentially there was only a few roads impacted, so I can't imagine the percentages being drastic.
Okay, then my other comment is that you and I talked, I think we said that the wage is $11 an hour. and that hasn't been increased for a real long time. I think you told me, and just, we had a little tour with Shane one day, and that hasn't been increased, I think, for a long, long time, and I'm not certainly recommending that we pad our budget in any way, but this is a very important, critical service for the community, and I know we did have a request from the Park and Recreation that they're going to increase the wages of their own workers. I think that's something that we might really consider, because this is a risky job, and we need people to do it.
I don't think anybody would turn down the opportunity to increase their salary, but essentially I looked at some of the areas that really need to be shored up is the operational costs, and make sure the budget reflects that first. And giving guys the right equipment to do the job is such a morale booster in itself. I mean, they'd all probably be mad if they were behind me that I'm saying, hey, we're not worried about our salaries, but essentially that's the truth of the matter is if the budget allows us to get the equipment we need, it makes our jobs easier. Guys are also very giving, as you know, through the association, we donate money back to help this budget and buy equipment as needed. So in reality, what we're compensated for our training actually goes right back to the association. So each active members contributing their funds right back into the association to support a building for us to have training. So, ultimately, I don't think the guys are out there looking for the dollars. I mean, if the budget allowed, I'd certainly entertain it, but my priority would be getting the other equipment that's needed first.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Shane. Any other follow-up?
Shane, you got to excuse my ignorance, but in your beginning notes, you made reference to it. It's an acronym I'm not familiar with. MPBAS, what does it actually stand for?
Yeah, it's actually Mutual Aid Box Alarm System, which that's where I was speaking of the Division 142, in which other communities will ask for your resources to assist in their calls at no cost. And then in return, they'll come to yours.
Thank you.
Spelled out word.
Now the bad news. I wanted to have this out for the last meeting, but it was just a little early for even having, I guess, some numbers.
Hey, you already seen this?
I do have, we can make copies for any members of the public.
It's Mark. Okay.
I took a stab at it, I printed it at home. It's not a good picture that comes out of this, and I'll just review it out loud for the benefit of everybody. In the area of revenue coming from the state, we're going to take approximately an $88,000 hit. And that means we'll have $88,000 less in revenue. Kind of knew this was coming for a while. It happens. It deals with how you're able to shift percentages to stay different expenditures, whether or not they show up. An example that I know Jeannie remembers how we made a special budget for the airport fuel, and that went into a different, that allowed us to drop that. Another one more recently is when we were fortunate enough to get fire grants. We took that and put it separately, or we only put it in when we got them, because then it would affect these numbers. So it's a little bit about moving the cheese, and we're out of place to move. And it's not illegal by any means, but it's just how the numbers reflect. So that's an $88,000 hit. I have the cemetery in there. This was just a guesstimate, and it sounds like it might be closer. Thank you, Chief. I think I got that right here.
You got knocked up?
It might be $10,000 more than what I have on the sheet, so it might be closer to $60,000. And so there's a part that's park and rec and street, and I don't know that that's been figured out where those percentages go. And then there's a part of it that's administration, that City Hall part of the administration budget. There's a city administrator resignation agreement, which is a little bit what Mary Beth alluded to, that's in there. The big one, the big one is the health insurance is a projected 38% increase. So that's $122,000. Minor to that is the Wapaka County PTF, that's a packaging and transfer facility, I believe is what the acronym stands for. The Countywide Association of Recycling is out of money. And so they are assessing the communities. That's an approximate, that might be the only actual one we do have the number for. I think that one, because it's so much per capita and we have our number, we can do the math. So that's 10,000. So that adds up to 309,000 and change that we need to find out of this budget. Other expenses that aren't even in here yet would be what Peggy referred to as city insurance. It's professional liability, buildings, and property. Okay, that's projected at about a 5% increase. We don't know what that is yet. There's an increase in the workman's comp modification factor. I will not pretend ever to be an HR person, but I had Peggy figure out one example in Park and Rec that's an increase of $2,200. Just randomly picked that one, nothing special about that one. So those will be in addition to the 309,000. So I've been kind of mulling this over for about 2 weeks now, trying to get these numbers, hoping they come differently. And we got a little bit of news today. One went down a little bit, but that was only a couple $100. So we have some tough decisions coming up.
Margaret, I thought the city administrator resignation agreement was higher than that. How many months did you?
That is higher than that, but a portion is utility. So it comes out of the ratepayers.
Oh, I see, okay, okay.
Comes out
Thank
of the
you.
ratepayers and not the taxpayers only.
So the utility budget is separate?
We will approve it together, but the money is the difference of ratepayers versus taxpayers.
Thank you.
This isn't, you know, if I look back to 2 years ago, Jeannie was on, I can't remember if Phil was or not, sorry, but we had to come up with 270,000, and that was a tough year. This is going to be north of 310. Lots of things coming about. We need to really be focusing on what we have to provide here. There's a lot of nice to haves that are good things that we may have to say we don't have the money for.
I might have to wait.
And at this dollar amount, unfortunately, there may be a loss of service to the taxpayer to make up that difference.
I have one more question. Was there any revenue increase? I know we've talked about, we added things in the TIF district. Is there new tax benefits that we have? We don't have anything coming.
We don't have any in there, so that's a positive. That's another positive negative. Normally, last year we were 2.94%. We went up. This year we only went up about 1.5 points.
Okay.
So our rate of increase, although still positive, our rate of increase decreased.
Okay. Thank you.
So we took, you know, I think that was maybe about 30,000 last year. It's probably more than that, 35,000. So we're talking so you maybe only have to come up with 300,000. That's all. I don't mean to make a joke of it, but I've been
Yeah,
working
there
on
was
this
no, I guess
for.
there was no revenue, projection, just the expense projection.
So I wanted to get this out here so everybody could understand and start to realize the seriousness of the situation. Sure, they generally show revenue within the allowed percentages put up by the PSC. And
I should have said income rather than revenue.
right, but that would stay
That
within,
doesn't
that
go
will
to the
stay
budget.
within their
Yeah.
revenue, their budget.
That doesn't come into the cities.
That's not even part of the cities, although we approved their budget as a whole,
The monies are separate.
the monies are completely separate. It's really a matter of understanding ratepayer versus taxpayer. So I continue to work with Peggy to gather more numbers and see what we can do. We discussed it a little bit before about, what was it open? Open personnel. We talked, yes, it was motion personnel, so that we were going to try to get some help, interim help, to start looking at these numbers and coming up with some ideas. We've done well in the past. We need some help this year. Any other, is an open discussion for any department head if they wanted to contribute anything. Fire and Park and Rec today. Next meeting will be October 7th. That's a 3 o'clock meeting. And that would most likely be street and utility, as well as more information on cemetery. We'll probably have, we don't have anything to report from cause, it's a 0. There's a lot of transit, fire and ambulance, there's many other smaller ones that play into there we'll finish off as well. But we're going to have to start looking pretty hard.
So the 7th is a Tuesday, correct?
That is a Tuesday.
I'm just giving you a copy of.
Oh, yes.
Can I just touch base
Yeah,
on it?
thank you. I turned it over. I took notes. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I had a court meeting last night, and this is a projected court budget. 2015, we changed our shortfall. It's in the red crossed out to 6,650, and that would be what is divided down between the municipalities. But we also discussed the fact, and that is because we changed a software upgrade, because she spends so much time on the dinosaur software she has. She would probably spend a whole lot less time if she got some decent a new upgrade, and it was suggested by Scott from Marion to put that in the budget. And if you notice, we have the $2,500 audit. We've been keeping $2,500 audit for every year rather than $5,000 every other year to kind of even it out so that it's not such a big chunk every year. But
Is this an audit year?
this is an audit year, but we allotted $2,500 for last year, which we're carrying over.
Carried over?
Yep, it's getting carried over. So our projected isn't really that bad for this year, which would be due in April. Our projected for this next year would be $3,830 is our projected shortfall.
Total or our share?
Our share.
3,000 what?
3,830 is our projected shortfall.
So that needs to go to that nice spreadsheet.
Yes.
Added expenses.
And
It's
that-
kind of already in there in other forms
Right,
from
it
previous
is.
years, but
But I also wanted to let you know that we have, with the new balance, which is really playing a big part into a lot of things, is that she did both sides. It's got me all confused. The court costs, here it is. So far this year, with the $10 increase, we have collected $3,160 extra for the court, which has been helping us out tremendously.
well, 300 citation.
Yeah, and we also, in our budget, if you noticed, we put in continued education with the asterisk there. Because on this paper I gave you, these things are supposed to be covered by the municipalities per state statutes, which should just be getting paid by. And that's what always shows, but that actually, if you look at the amounts, that's usually what our shortfall is. You see what I'm saying? According to state statutes, the municipalities should be covering insurance, and continued education, which, and the audit. That's all through state statutes. It should be covered by the municipalities, but
So you're saying that's outside of operational budget?
right. So, I mean, we always have the shortfall, and that's basically what the shortfall is what the municipality should be paying us to begin with.
And they're not.
And, yeah, it doesn't happen. So, I mean, it's always a big surprise when we have the big shortfall, but it shouldn't really be that big a surprise when they're not paying. You know what I'm saying?
So who's responsible for collecting?
Well, we just always send a bill in April for what our shortfall was the previous year. That's usually how it has always worked. But it's always, and it usually comes out of contingency. It always has in the past years. Because we never really have a budget line item on it. I know it shows in the police departments. It shouldn't show in there though. It should be in the general fund.
But you don't send a bill to Iowa and Manawa and Marion?
Yes, they all
Yes,
get a bill.
they all do.
Everybody gets a bill.
But they don't pay.
Yes, they all pay it.
Well, then why did you say?
No, everybody pays it because it should be paid ahead of time. It should be paid or when they get their bill, actually, but that's just the way we do it.
Right, it's a procedural thing on the courts, not from cities. Cities of, or municipalities of Clintonville, Iowa, Manawa, and Marion not paying.
No, they all pay. Everybody pays. They all pay their percent according to,
It's all divided down and there's what about the insurance, continuing education and audit?
well, that's always their problem, is it should be coming out of the general fund, but it comes out of their fund until it all gets audited, and then we say what we're short, and then the cities pay us back. Anybody who's been on council knows what I'm talking about, and, over the years. But I just wanted to give you a heads up on the budget for
So 3830 would be our obligation, or 15.
the 15th. That's the guesstimate, but she thinks it's going to come better than that, but that's figuring high. Go with that.
It's figuring high? could
That's
be
figuring
less.
high, it could be less. She just always plays high, which is kind of nice that way. It's no big surprise at the end.
All right. Anything else on for you?
No, maybe have some more for you on the next council agreement. Before council is at the council.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Anything else for the budget? Icon department heads? You okay?
I would make a motion to adjourn.
Motion and second to adjourn. All in favor, aye?
For those of you who might have come for the special council meeting, we do not have a quorum, and that was canceled about 3 hours ago. And nothing's been rescheduled yet.